The Cuyahoga County Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025, Earth Day. Will please come to order, and the clerk will call the roll.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is 3:05 p.m. As a reminder to all in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Mr. Jones.
Here.
Ms. Turner.
Present.
Mr. Hauser.
Here.
Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent at the moment. Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Mr. Sweeney is absent at the moment. Mr. Castleberry is absent. Mr. Gallagher. Mr. Schlepper.
Here.
Ms. Conwell. Council President Miller.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And the next item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have anybody signed in?
Ed Eckert.
Good afternoon. Welcome
Good
to the
afternoon.
committee.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the County Council. I am here today on
Mr.
behalf...
Eckert, if
Yes.
you could please state your name for the record.
Sure. My
Thank
name
you.
is Ed Eckhart, and I am with Downtown Cleveland Incorporated as a senior advisor. I'm here this afternoon to talk about the proposed legislation to put a pause on the Sheriff's Downtown Safety Patrol. As all of you will remember, back in August of 2023, when the patrol was added into downtown, it had a significant impact on the safety and vibrancy of our region's core. As the region's core goes, so does the region. The collaboration between the City of Cleveland, the County Sheriff's Office, our federal partners, our private providers, as well as the regional police, do a great job of weaving a collaborative of safety and security for those that visit, live, and work in downtown Cleveland. To put a pause on the patrol now going into the summer months where we usually experience an uptick in crime just because of the weather would do a great disservice to all of the work that's been done in the last 2+ years. Crime has been significantly reduced. People feel safer when they come downtown, and we consistently receive positive feedback from business operators, property owners, residents, and visitors about the great work of the Sheriff's Department. So we would really advocate to the council as you review the proposed legislation to take into account the importance of this very critical asset to not only downtown, but also the region. And we'd be willing and happy to work with you as you go through to vet this process to provide our feedback as we've seen it over the last 2.5 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony.
That concludes the public comment portion for today's meeting.
Next on our agenda, we have a presentation and discussion from David Gilbert, President and Chief Executive Officer for Destination Cleveland and the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission. Annual updates regarding the use of the bed tax and regarding the Sports Commission. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of County Council. My name is John Pinney. I have the pleasure of serving as the board chair for Destination Cleveland. I'd like to just give you a few opening remarks on behalf of my fellow 37 members of the Destination Cleveland board. First of all, on behalf of our entire board, we want to thank County Council and the administration and all the staff for their support throughout 2024. As you probably know, 2024 was an incredible year for our county. It was probably the most successful year from a hospitality and tourism standpoint we've ever had. As David will outline in his presentation, we set many records, and I'll just walk you through those, and I'll be brief and let David really get into the details of it. But an example of some of the records we set were citywide events. When I first started on the board 19 years ago, next year will be my 20th, and I will step down as chair next year. But next year, or in my first few years as a member of the board, we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4 citywide events. In 2024, we had 27 of them. In 2025, we're forecasting 24 citywide events, which is extraordinary. So it's a record we definitely set. In addition to that, our RevPAR, our revenue per room, we set a significant record. It was widely reported in national publications that our growth rate was amongst the highest in the entire country. We set a bed tax record, which allowed us to recover some of our losses from COVID. And in addition to that, our sales pipeline is the strongest it's ever been. And I can say this with certainty, our sales team, which has grown in strength, is the strongest it's been. And our sales process, we think, is spot on right now. We have a great strategy, and we're seeing incredible leads. And we're starting to book out, as David will mention, all the way out through 2035. So the investment that you made in the expanded convention center in the form of what we used to call the Medical Mart, it's now part of the convention center. We're already putting that to work. As David will walk you through it, there's a significant ROI. There will be more in the future. We want to thank you for standing by our request to expand the convention center and make that investment. We promise that we're going to put that facility to great use, and our team is committed to it, and already the meeting planners are very impressed with it. So thank you for that. Another record that we're setting is hotel investment. In addition to a lot of other real estate development despite challenging times, our estimate is there's 300 to possibly 350 million of hotel investment in the county. And a lot of that is supported by the county as well as other economic development organizations, but we're really excited about new products coming online, including the W Hotel, with initial construction already commenced on that, and other hotels that have already opened, including, I think, the Fidelis. So very excited about that. There's also hotel projects in the suburb, University Circle, and elsewhere. So it was an incredible year. We really want to thank you for our support. Our board is very pleased. Our hotels are pleased. We need to continue to deliver great results for the county and for our constituents and our partners. We have a long way to go to get to where we ultimately want to be, but I could tell you, having seen this starting 19 years ago to where we are today, it's incredible. And a lot of that is driven by the fact that we really believe that we have the very best CEO in the entire industry, and we firmly believe that we have the very best staff in the entire industry. And we continue to win awards. And on behalf of our board, I will tell you, we're all very pleased, and also our board is very dedicated. We ask a lot of our board members. We ask them to be present. We ask them to be engaged. We ask them to help with strategy. We have, in our opinion, one of the best boards in the entire industry, and we've attracted really significant talent, and overall very pleased with where we're at. And I'm sure you'll have questions for David. He usually handles all the heavy lifting, but I just want to say on behalf of our board, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. One thing I did want to bring up, I'm going to show a short presentation, and I'm going to zip through, but please ask any questions. It was on the schedule today to also talk about Greater Cleveland Sports Commission. Most of you may know that's a completely separate organization from Destination Cleveland, separate board, separate staff, separate funding. I happen to run both. Councilman Jones is a very active member of our board. We're going to hold off until fall and invite you all to a sporting event that we host with lots of out-of-towners to do a presentation, but you can kind of see for yourself. Actually, when you see it, it really it gives you a great effect. So just know that that's coming. Destination Cleveland, as you may know, we are the designated either Convention and Visitors Bureau or Destination Marketing Organization, a couple different vernaculars in the industry for our county. We're a private 501c6 organization, and we are funded, as all of our peers throughout the country, through hotel occupancy tax, which is governed by the state, but it is run by the county. It's collected, it's audited, and distributed through the county. And we like to once a year come in and just give you an update on the work that we're doing as an organization. And I'm not going to read every word that's on here. You all have the presentation. You'll see some of the slides. What I will say here is really a couple of important things. Number one, our job is to compete against cities from around the region and really you think of competitive cities in particular like Detroit, Pittsburgh, Columbus, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, similar sized cities, all doing the same thing. Our job is to win. Our job is to compete against them for a larger piece of the visitor economy to come back into Cuyahoga County's, our economy and our coffers than we do our competitive set. And I'm not going to go into all the detail of the things that we do. We have some, and I'll talk a little bit about some. At the end of the day, we're about results. We're about, are we putting money back into the county's general fund? Are we doing it better than our peers? Because at the end of the day, that's what we do. We compete. We're competing to get more people to spend more money and employ more people and more tax dollars. And we are the only organization designated to do it. We are the only, if you think about it, we are sort of the consumer marketing organization for Northeast Ohio. I will say there's really four things that we do that we're charged with doing. Number one is attracting people here. First, foremost, it's what we always do. At the end of the day, our biggest metrics are on the number of people that come here. Everything else spins off from that. How much they spend, the tax dollars generated, the jobs that are created. It all emanates from, do we get a bigger share of the visitor, the number of visitors and the visitor dollar? We are also in charge of advancing the perception of Cleveland nationally, regionally, and locally as part of a business structure, and probably as relevant or more relevant to Cleveland than maybe any other city in the country. Just many of us, I assume, I know many of you personally, I know many of you are from here, grew up here, even if you haven't, you've been here a while. It's perception is an issue that Cleveland has battled for a couple generations. You could say unfairly, but perception is reality, and it's critical for us to be out there and managing that perception of Cleveland. Ultimately, people's decision to visit here, to live here, to work here starts with their perception. We also know when someone visits here, their perception goes up dramatically. Third is we care for the visitor experience. When people come here, the experience they have is critical. We do a lot of research on it. And the best way to think of it is we have a lot of great dots. We have our sports, we have our arts, we have great neighborhoods. It's nobody's job really to connect the dots. And that's often where the visitor experience is at its heightened and can make or break. So we do a lot with a lot of partners. We don't control those areas. We do a lot in helping to research and things like wayfinding, lighting, other things that are critically important to that visitor experience. And finally, sort of the fourth thing we do is we leverage our particular expertise to help other economic development opportunities around the region. Things like the Cleveland Talent Alliance. We work with economic development groups, but we stay in our lane in using the brand of Cleveland and using our particular capabilities to help advance other economic development initiatives in the county. At the end of the day, our job is to compete against other cities, ROI, and you know, when you see Pure Michigan ads or Kentucky, every trip starts with a sip, you see those, that's what we're doing in other markets. You don't see our stuff. I'll show you a little bit, but that's our job. Our job is to hopefully do better than them. We have a staff of 65, pretty normal for our industry. We track, and I'll talk a little bit about, we track our competitors, how big they are, what they spend, and it's really broken into these four main buckets. Our destination marketing, convention sales and services, destination management, and org management. Our board, as John mentioned, we have 37. This says 38. We just had somebody that left because they retired, but it's a max of 40. We have a board really made up of everything from civic leaders, government leaders, private sector, heads of some large attractions, and also the hospitality industry, and a lot of also marketing and media expertise. Our funding, as I mentioned, is through a hotel occupancy tax. We are not unique. Every one of our competitors around the country, and in our national association, there are 500 or 600 of our types of organizations, big and small. Every single one is funded through a bed tax. Our job is to do the most with it. I'm not going to go into detail, but happy to answer any questions. the amount of bed tax and the bed tax that comes to Destination Cleveland is a little bit of a blend of three different pieces of the bed tax. As you all know, Cuyahoga County right now has 6.5% bed tax that's collected. City also has 3%. That's the total bed tax collected. Roughly half of that 6.5%, a little less than half, comes to Destination Cleveland. Some goes back out the door to fund the debt on, or much of the debt on the Rocket Mortgage Field, so now Rocket Arena transformation. The net of all that is, this year, our budget from bed tax is about $20.5 million. And like I said, we track, it's fairly consistent among our peers. We track what their budgets are. We're bigger than some, we're smaller than some. I would say all of our peers, except for a few, are somewhere in between 16, 17 and 22, 23. So we're kind of right in the middle. So this is something we do track. We do a lot of comparing just to make sure we're spending the right way. How much of our budget is for staffing versus programming, and what percentage is on salary. The other thing we do every couple of years salary surveys. So we know in our industry, making sure that our salaries are in line so we can attract talent, but not too out of line that we're spending too much. So we are audited every year privately. That it's a public audit, but privately, and I believe it's every other year, the state does an audit. To all of our types of organizations. Everything we have is on GuideStar, we are not a public entity, but we operate like one. We are very, in terms of our openness and transparency of what we spend, how we spend, our taxes, our audits, there's no secrets. We track our budget allocation on, really most important for us is where it goes and what we spend it on. Marketing is really more than anything else. If you take marketing and convention attraction, that combined is well over half of what our budget is based on staffing for those and other spending. And again, only 13% is on management and organization, which is quite low for our industry, but that's quite frankly how we like to keep it. And this is what's important to us. What's the ROI for the county? In 23, which is the latest data that we have, we'll have 24's data this summer, generated $350 million in direct taxes for the county. This isn't economic impact. This is direct taxes for the county. Big increase over 22. Of course, we were coming out of COVID. So huge increases of 21 over 20 and going on up, but still was great. If you take those, that amount of money, it equates to almost $1,400 for every household in Cuyahoga County. They would have to pay that much more in taxes if the taxes generated by visitors, and that's what it's from. It is the spending by people from out of Cuyahoga County. It's actually from further than that. It's actually 50 miles or more outside of Cuyahoga County, in Cuyahoga County, that is not a daily visit. So if someone lives 51 miles away and works in the county, that doesn't count. John had mentioned the conventions. We already have tracked that conventions and meetings that have been booked in the convention center only because we have the new renovation that would not have had the space before has already generated $3.1 million in direct county taxes. So from the best we could tell, the investment you made is already more than paying itself. So look, that's our job. Our job is to fill it and make sure that happens. A lot of the numbers here you have, but we track not only what's spent, but the tax dollars. We have research every year on the jobs and the job growth. And what we do know is that 7% of all jobs in Cuyahoga County are supported by the visitors and what they spend.
So on that last
Yeah,
slide,
please.
are those numbers 2023 numbers?
They are. They're 2023. As I mentioned, Council President, we will have 2024's numbers later this summer, which we will get to you. What we also do is we track those numbers against the rest of the state. We use the exact same researchers and research methodology because it's important for us. Look, growth is important, or numbers are important to us, without the context, it's really hard to say. We could say we're up 3%. If Columbus and Cincinnati were at 5%, we're not doing very well. If they're up 1 or 2%, so for us, it's not just about the actual numbers in what we do. We also are. It's really important for us to also have the comparative dollars. Over the last 10 years, and we just did this because we just had the 10th anniversary of our new brand. Tourism is way up. It is a growth industry. It is a growth industry in this county, and I think for those of us probably who grew up here probably never would have thought that we're a tourist town, a visitor town. We absolutely are, and we are doing. It's not just that this is up better than the state average, better than the national average, in all of these areas. I just mentioned 7% of workers in Cuyahoga County are from the industry. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we do. Destination marketing, here's all the areas that we do. We have, I think right now, 19 full-time people in marketing communications. We're the region's agency, if you will. And we do it through all these areas, content management, content creation, our brand, which is sort of manifested in the script Cleveland, has been extremely successful. We bring in dozens of travel writers every year. So this right here, this is just a sample of headlines in travel and other publications about Cleveland or Cuyahoga County from last year alone. Every one was a result of our bringing somebody into town. So these things don't happen by accident. If they're not told, if they're not told, or most importantly, see it for themselves, they don't write about it. So we bring in travel writers when we have certain angles. Sometimes we just bring them in, and we hope they write something. Sometimes they'll contact us, and we say, well, if you're interested in writing, let us bring you here and show it for yourselves. And it pays off in a very, very big way. Our brand campaign, just to show you, we are doing. Most of our marketing advertising is focused on millennials and Gen Z. They are the most open to visiting. We also we concentrate on drive markets. We have to fish where the fish are, and we are a regional drive tourist destination. About 50% of all people who come here stay in hotels. The rest will stay with friends and family. Pretty normal for our type of city. If you're not a Vegas, Orlando, you really are friends and family. What's amazing is, and there's not a slide, we announced at our recent annual meeting, now 92% of people in Cuyahoga County would recommend Cleveland as a place to visit for friends and family. That was 34% 11 years ago. So if any one of us, if we aren't willing to tell our friends and family they should come visit us, we ought to just go visit them, we're leaving money on the table. And that's why resident sentiment is critically important. This will just show you, you have it in your packets, some of the types of marketing and advertising we do around our brand, and it's done really well. What I would just tell you is phenomenal results. If like, at the end of the day, it's about whether all of these results turn into people coming here. Our job is to get them to consider Cleveland as a place to visit. And when I say Cleveland, I don't mean municipality of. That's how the outside world thinks of us. If you're in Pittsburgh, honestly, you don't know Cuyahoga County versus another county, or Strongsville versus East Lake. You don't know that. Well, they know Cleveland. That's all we care about. We have to get them to think, I am interested in visiting Cleveland. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to start to see what there is to do, how I do it. We help them plan the visit. And all of this engagement turns into people considering a visit, and then ultimately turns into visits. John mentioned our convention sales. We had by far our biggest year. 13% increase over the year before in future bookings. Citywide events, those are meetings or conventions that have 1,200 rooms, nights or more on their peak, using a minimum of 3 hotels. 10 years ago, we had 3 or 4 a year. We're now at between 25 and 30 a year, and we are booking meetings, conventions. John just mentioned we just had a verbal commitment for a group for 2035. This was unheard of for us even 5-6 years ago. We are now in a, I would say our convention center is on the smaller side, but it's still very nice. The amenities are great. It's beautiful, and we feel it. We feel it. It's doing very, very well. Again, you have this in your packet, but just some examples of groups that they're all kinds of groups that some you never heard of, most you never heard of. The big thing is they bring a lot of people in. And when they book a meeting or a convention, their members go where they're told to go. And these are all ones where we've beaten Columbus, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, Detroit, St. Louis, and many others. Then we get into destination management, about how we look, act, and feel as a visitor destination. These are our primary areas. I'm not going to go into all these again there. I'm going to leave time for questions. There's a lot that is in your packet. But the new lighting that just happened at Public Square, that's a great example of the kind of thing we do. That happened to be the biggest one, and actually, the county put in $1 million, city put in $1 million. We put in about $3.25 million from a particular pot of dollars that now don't exist for us anymore. But it's about placemaking. It's about how can we do our role in identifying where important dots need to be connected to make people feel safe, to make their experience better. Things like wayfinding, things like signage. We try hard to get people out into neighborhoods, so it's not just downtown. How do we get people out into suburbs that it's not just downtown, so they can experience far more of the real Cleveland. We do things like visitor passports, brewery passports, and others to get them out and about and encourage them to visit lots of places. Our job is to get them to be here and spend as much money as we possibly can. As I mentioned, we've also gotten very involved in the Cleveland Town Alliance, because we know that when people visit, their perception of Cleveland as a place to live and work goes up dramatically. So it's why in Cuyahoga County, travel and tourism is so critically important. In the short term, like most places, it's measured by dollars. But in the long term, we have millions of people who now think differently. And from research now, they are far more willing to be open to the message of living and working in Cleveland. What research shows is if you're not open to that, you could have a job that matches. You could be an engineer and there could be 30 engineering jobs that meet your criteria. If you're not open to living in Cleveland, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. You will not come here. So we research and we track people's willingness. And the number one way to get them to be open to living and working here is experiencing it. So when we have millions of first dates a year for our community, our job is to get them here and also try to turn them into longer term relationships. Again, just more of our destination management. And this is the last slide. What I just want to show is 8 of the past 10 years, visitation to Cuyahoga County has grown faster than the rest of the state, has grown faster than the rest of the country. We took a huge hit during COVID, bigger than the rest of the state, bigger than the rest of the country, as did most cities. When people travel, they travel to outdoor places, national parks, state parks, and but we're recovering very nicely, and we are back to growing faster than our peers, and we expect when we get the 24 data that it'll be the same. So I'm going to end there and just open it up to any questions about the work that we do, really anything at all.
Ms. Conwell.
Yes, thank you through the chair to Mr. Gilbert. A lot of stuff in the news in terms of tourism just from other countries to the United States. Have you seen any impacts? Or I know we don't have the 2024 numbers, but do you feel that we will be impacted?
It's a great question, Councilwoman. I think we look at a lot of industry research and we get stuff in a couple times a week. I think 100% there is impact to the country, 100%. I think what we have to see is how deep it will be for Cleveland. And I think we have two things going for us in this regard. One is we're not an international gateway city. So when you have New York, Chicago, Boston, same on the West Coast or places like Houston, Miami, they will be hurt more. That when you have an international visitor, we're usually the third or fourth visit for an international visitor for the most part. So it shouldn't hurt us as much. Where I think we could be impacted even more is the economy. As people are nervous, travel can go down. What we've seen so far, thankfully, in the research that we've seen just over the past 6-8 weeks, most people are still traveling, but they're changing their travel behavior. international trips are becoming U.S.-based trips, and flying trips, bless you, flying trips are becoming driving trips. And we are more of a drive destination. So we have seen anecdotally, the Rock Hall said there have been visitors from Canada that have purchased tickets in advance that send them back. Canada in particular, I mean, we're so close to Toronto area. So I anticipate we will. I am hopeful that it's going to be fairly small because our sweet spot is not international, and we could benefit over other places from decrease in travel due to the economy. But we're watching closely. We're making budget contingent plans just in case. So it is something we are certainly watching.
Thank you.
Councilman Schlepper.
Hi there, Mr. Gilbert. Thank you so much for being here and for the work that you do. You've been moving our region forward for decades. That's what I ran on when I ran for this seat. As someone that is in my early 40s and really had to hunker down to try to make it here, certainly post 09, 08, 09, that area. I've had to live in other cities for economic reasons. I've lived in Boston, I've lived in Denver. I ultimately decided to come back because, I'm married. I have a 6-year-old daughter. At the time, she was 1.5. We were in Denver. Also, a 900 square foot house in Denver is $1 million. It's not here. Can I ask what your organization is doing to bring people like me back, the people that, we'll call us the boomerang generation, those of us that have perhaps left and gone to other regions and then are coming back because of the vitality that we're seeing now?
Yeah, thank you, Councilman. Appreciate the sentiment, and it's a great thought. And so a couple of years ago, well, some of the thought process started before COVID, where we were starting as an organization to get asked by companies to help them recruit talent. They're like, well, you're bringing people here, and we want to help. But we realized, one, that what we do and the tools we have are really geared to tourist visitors and not specifically for talent attraction. We started to do some research, and what we found is we did a lot of research on how people choose where they're going to live for a job, and it's different than how they choose a place to go for a long weekend. There are a lot of similarities, but it really is different. Ultimately, what we did was we realized, if you're going to develop an ecosystem of talent attraction, if you call it that, we can't do it alone. There's a lot of other organizations that are in that ecosystem, and we've partnered with a number, Greater Cleveland Partnership being one, Team Neo, and we actually jointly have hired a full-time person to work on this issue. And right now, what we see is, from our work, what's critical is the people most open to moving here, whether it's moving here first time, moving back, are people who've experienced it. And we put those in 3 buckets. People who visited, which is right in our wheelhouse. They're here for leisure travel, they're for meetings, business conventions. Number 2 is temporary residents, which really is college students. And we have I think the number is 190,000 college students in Northeast Ohio, biggest concentration in the state. They're just not in one school. But and the third are people who've lived here but moved away. We've started some efforts on the first 2. We haven't yet gotten to significant efforts yet on the people who've moved away, but what we did do was we created a first ever website specifically for people who are interested in moving here. So if you came to our website before, you would see great things to do for a weekend, events listings, here's what to do in arts and culture and sports and music and on and on. Nothing about schools, nothing about suburbs, nothing about neighborhoods, nothing about a calculator of how cheap it is to live here. Not testimonials from people who say, well, I'm in retail, I'm an engineer, whatever it is, and here's why it's great. We did that. So what we're doing right now is we're starting to build the tools. I think what will be a next frontier for us is how do we do more things for the boomerangers. And what we are doing is the reason, and then I'll be quiet, I know it's kind of getting in the weeds, but the reason we needed the tools was we need locals to reach out to their friends, their family, their brothers, sisters, kids, nephews, nieces, whatever it is, say, this is a really cool place. Or if it's too expensive to be in Denver or to be in Boston, you really ought to look here. Now we have a place for them to send them to. But the good news is we know that Cleveland just way over indexes, thankfully, in people who have an affinity for their hometown. And we need to do more with that. So I would tell you we are on the front end, but there's going to be a lot more because it's critical. So I hope that helps.
So I would like to note the presence of Councilwoman Conwell this afternoon. And who else has a question? Councilwoman Simon.
No, sir, I don't have a question, but my presence is
Yes,
recognized, I
right.
think.
Sorry.
That's all that's needed.
I have a question.
And Councilman Hauser.
I have a question, David. I think you're doing a great job. My question is, what are you doing? I see your target is millennials and Gen Z, but what are we doing to make sure we have diverse voices when it comes into this the strategy around tourism, particularly, David, from like Black and Brown communities, as well as I'm interested to know your thoughts on changes you might see in branding within the next 5 to 10 years.
Thanks, Councilman. Great question. And I would tell you, I believe we are doing as much or more to showcase Cleveland's diversity than any of our peers in the country. We take it very seriously, but I'll give you some parts of our strategy that are critical. If you were to go on our website, and I'd encourage you to go and look, we showcase locals. Our content is around locals talking about what they love most about their community. And we make sure that when we are an incredibly diverse community, and that's what we show. We don't show some Black and brown faces in some pictures and say, well, we've done our job. So we did a campaign last year, and we're doing more with it. We called it, we had a couch. We took this couch, like this big white leather couch, out into different neighborhoods, and we would pair up two people, and they would be people as different as you could imagine, and they had a conversation, talked about what they loved about Cleveland. And it was everything, Black, white, transgender, old, young. We won lots of awards. It's not about awards, like that's wonderful, but we love that what we do truly is about this community. Because I will tell you, our brand, if you have what a brand is at its heart is what you feel about that brand, what you feel when you see that brand. So we can't manufacture what this community is, or we shouldn't be. Because if somebody comes here because of that, they're not going to experience what you told them they were going to experience, and they're not going to be your customers for life. So we have to project who we are. And by the way, because of that, the brand continues to evolve. But I'll give you another example, even more so beyond just using the voices of our community. The other thing we're doing, and I really think we are the only one of our peers doing this. It was really important for us to know that we could try to get these visitor dollars into underserved neighborhoods. And look, at the end of the day, most of our places that people visit, not about friends and family, are located downtown, University Circle. It's fine, they are. We don't have a big museum in Lee Harvard. Okay, it's fine. What we did was we had our team over the course of 3 years went out into every single Cleveland neighborhood with the CDC and council members and walked the neighborhood. And they gave suggestions on things in your neighborhood that you think could be visitor destinations. And it doesn't have to be, it's not a museum. It could be a little urban farm. It could be, even if it's not something where people, we had to start putting in people's minds, what do you have that people would want to see? We hired a full-time person. Her job is to work with neighborhoods on the development of experiences. And then we are now marketing those experiences to meeting conventioneers, and we're starting to put them on our passports. So ASAE, a big convention we had last year, some of you may have read about it, is sort of the most important convention we've had, about 5,000 people. We developed 9 different experiences in Cleveland neighborhoods. We paid for them. I mean, it's not like open your doors up for free. We wanted people to make money. And it was things like Riddall Farm, different stuff. And then we paid for them to be done, and we had the conventioneers then signed up. I think that we had over 200 people that signed up for one or another tour. They got on a bus, they went, they saw this great stuff. The places who were hosting us made the money, and what it did was, it did 2 important things. It pushed visitor dollars into neighborhoods that otherwise wouldn't have seen it, for one, and 2, we got people to see much more of what Cleveland really is. It's not to say that going to Playhouse Square or going to a Cavs game or going to the Rock Hall, or that's incredibly important stuff for what it draws people in. It doesn't really get people to understand who Cleveland is. If we also want people to think, I could live there, you have to do more. And so I would tell you, here's what I'll offer to you. If you ever want, any of you ever want, we could do a presentation or have you come to our office just to meet with our team to talk about all those things we're doing. But I would tell you, I believe we are incredibly forward-thinking in terms of not checking the box, if you will, but about really, we believe in what this community is. And we have to market that. And it gets to your last question about the brand. The brand continues to evolve. We just finished a process about 3 years ago. So when we say evolves, we'll take about a year. We'll do focus groups locally, out of town. 10 years ago, our brand was a little bit more apologetic. Damn right we're Cleveland, because we don't have to do that so much anymore. So we change, the brand is the brand if you get to feel it right, but the voice you use, like now we're using a lot more of this land for life. And part of that in a lot of our marketing, it's not the brand, it's a campaign, but it's now more about you should want to live here, not just come here. You should want to live your life here. And so what I would tell you, I think the brand that we've created is actually endured for over 10 years, which is and done extraordinarily well. The key is, if you're going to do it right, how do you keep understanding how your community continues to change, and how do you evolve that brand? So what I hope that we are still using the same brand, but we continue to evolve it so it continues to be effective and speaks in the voice of how our community broadly continues to change. I hope that does it.
You did, David. Thank you for all the great work you're doing.
Thank you.
So, on the Cleveland bed tax, did I hear correct that it's 3%, and what is that bed tax used for?
My understanding, and I Council President, I don't know. So the way it works, there's a limit in state law of what counties can charge. It's 5%. We have enabling legislation to allow Cuyahoga County, which has 6.5%, which is what it has. Cities are allowed to add no cap. Cleveland has 3. I think there are some suburbs who have some small amounts as well. I believe it goes into the city general fund, but I don't know that for certain.
Okay. And to follow up on Vice President Conwell's question about the visitor impact, I heard a report that a veterans-related convention scheduled in Cleveland for October got canceled. Can you confirm that and say a little bit about that? And how much concern do you have of other things like that happening, or do you think that's a one-off?
Thank you, Council President. My mistake for failing to mention that in that question. Absolutely, we did. Thankfully, right now, there's only been one cancellation. We have already made a list, and it's a fairly substantial list, of every future convention we have that's federal government related, and we have our eye on every one of those. I think we don't know. I think the other impact is meetings, conventions that may not be federally government sponsored, but do have a percentage of federal employees who attend. We are expecting to see lower attendance. So I think there will be an effect. Again, we're already seeing some of it. And we've been told by some of those future meetings, conventions later this year, that they expect to have less than they had anticipated because there isn't the budget in a lot of federal agencies. So again, it's one of those things we're closely monitoring. Hard to tell if that will be a one-off or if it will be a real trend. We certainly are hoping it's the former and not the latter.
And my next question to follow up on Councilman Hauser's question about the diversity and the promotion thereof. Is the national landscape having any impact on your ability to work in that area?
Thank you, Council President. I don't think so. Look, we know who we are. We know our job is to represent this community. And anything that's going on federally, in our mind, doesn't change that. I think as an organization, we have to think about wording and other things. It's just a reality. There is a reality, but wording and intent are two very different things. And we certainly do not intend to reflect this community differently than who we are. That would be disingenuous for us to do that.
Are there other questions? Councilman Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. President. David, this may be outside of your scope, but do you talk to other major cities within the state about the same thing that you do here? And if you do, is there any talk about, and again, this doesn't involve Cleveland, but the fact that you do lose some residents in throughout the state because of the state income tax, and other, like my peers, several go to another state because there's no state income tax. Has any of that ever come up?
Council, I would say we have a great relationship with our peers. We kind of call it co-opetition. You know, we cooperate. There are times when we compete, but in fact, I literally just today talked to my counterpart at Experience Columbus, our mainly at the big cities. What I would tell you is we really haven't talked about, we are far more involved in talent attraction and getting in that piece of it than our peers. So we really haven't talked with at least our CVB or DMO peers about that issue. We do about more things related to meetings, conventions, tourism, and in particular, state and national issues that affect all of us, but that's one that we really haven't talked about much.
I was just wondering if you had a lobby, if you had a group that had a lobby in Columbus.
We do. So there's an organization called OACVB, Ohio Association of Convention and Visitors Bureaus, that lobbies on behalf of, I forgot the number, there's about 60 of ours. What I would say that the majority of them are much smaller. So you may you may have a county that is more rural and they may have 3 people in their staff for an entire county, very different. So I would say that traditionally, Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati in particular, sometimes a little Dayton and Toledo, tend to have a little bit of different issues. So we also have a little bit of just informal of the bigger cities, but we are represented at the state level in there. There's also something called OTA, Ohio Travel Association, which is more broadly organizations like ours, plus attractions and a lot of different types of businesses that are in the travel tourism industry.
Appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Councilman Jones.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President. Dave, again, it's good to see you.
Same.
All right. Dave, I want to ask about the Superman statue. We've all, this council and county government proper administration, we've been working and been the drivers of bringing this statue here. So it certainly is meant to have an impact and draw attention and bring attraction here. Some things I might assume might happen organically, or what role will you play in helping things like seeing that the Goodyear blimp zooms in on it during a sports game? Does that happen on its own, or do you make that happen? And what other things can happen as a result that you would have a part of?
Thank you, Council. I think there's a couple answers there. One, I mean, from my understanding, we're not deeply involved. My understanding is, obviously, we talk about it, and I think they're in fundraising mode to finalize it. And we certainly hope it happens, and I think we're willing to play a little bit of a role financially in helping make sure that happens. We don't dictate what the national media shows in, again, we're lucky, we're going to hopefully have lots of Cavs playoff games and hopefully 16 of them. And thankfully, they tend to, like, we're real excited because they almost always show the Script Cleveland signs, which is a good manifestation of our brand. A lot of times they'll show the Rock Hall. I think I would imagine if the Superman statue, hopefully it's a when and not an if happens, that's going to get a lot of attention. It's just unique. It's different. It's core to Cleveland. That tends to be the kind of thing that the national media will show. I think our biggest job is how do we get more, and Sports Commission too, which you're deeply involved in, how do we get more nationally televised things here so that there's every opportunity for those things to be. I will tell you, assuming it happens, I do think there are things around meetings, conventions, and others that are relevant to that we can try to bring to Cleveland that might have a greater chance of coming here, excuse me, because we are showcasing in such a visual way Cleveland as the birthplace of Superman. So yeah, I guess the best way to put it, it would be a great tool for us.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions or comments? So I would just close by saying that I take a portfolio approach when it comes to economic development in Cuyahoga County. It's not any one thing. It's healthcare, it's manufacturing, it's travel and tourism, it's sports, it's arts and culture, and they all play a piece, and this piece is an important one, and I appreciate your efforts and your work, and I do think it's quite obvious that Cleveland's positioning as a travel destination city has greatly improved under your leadership. It's very hard when taking on these big undertakings to visibly move the needle, but I believe you have done so, and I wish you continued success.
Thank you, Council President. Thank all of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is an executive session. All meetings of the Cuyahoga County Council are open to the public under the Ohio Open Meetings Laws. Under that law, council may go into executive session during a meeting for specifically authorized purposes. During executive session, council confers outside the hearing of the public. Council may not make any decisions about any matters in executive session. All decisions are made in public. This afternoon, the council will go into executive session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining matters. During this time, our live stream will be down, and we ask all those not specifically needed for the executive session to remain in council chambers. Council members will convene in the adjacent committee room A and will re-enter the meeting once the executive session has ended. Is there a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining matters?
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. This motion requires a roll call. I would ask the clerk to please call the roll on the motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Jones? Ms. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Hauser? Ms. Simon?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney is absent. Mr. Castleberry is absent. Mr. Gallagher? Mr. Schlepper? Ms. Conwell? Council President Miller?
Yes,
The motion carries.
the yeas have it, and we will adjourn the meeting for our executive session. Committee of the Whole will now come back to order. The executive session is concluded. Does anyone have any miscellaneous business? Hearing none, the executive session is adjourned, and the regular council meeting will convene at 5